Hey guys, and we're live here with this week's Facebook Live event. Thank you so much for joining us. Those of you who don't know, I'm Stuart. I'm the VP for International Sales and Marketing here at Netready. As you'll come to know, Netready is dedicated to creating informative content on multi-level marketing, providing rich, awesome information just to help you as the business owner wanting to launch this beautiful business of yours. So today we're going to be speaking about financing your multi-level marketing business, and I've got none other than Mr. Richard Sletcher here in studio with me. Hey Richard.
Again.
And we've swapped around again.
Yes, just switching it up here.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think,
You were just so insistent of showing your good side to the camera.
It's the right side. And I was wrong because I thought it was a left, but I think with this haircut,
exactly.
It's sharp.
Oh,
yeah.
Very nice.
And we said Tuesdays is white shirt days. We did. It's a beautiful, beautiful shirt.
Unfortunately, yeah, sorry about that. Messed it up.
Next week we'll do it. Richard, today we're going to be talking about financing your multi-level marketing business for all those guys wanting to start up and launch their companies. I mean, this is a big talking point here.
Yeah.
How much do we need? Where do we go and find these funds? So in this session, we're going to cover all of those elements. So I'm excited to dive in here. Okay.
Well, how many of our clients haven't come to us and said, we'd love to start, but we don't have the money?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we're going to cover all of that in here. Yeah. So for the guys that are listening, please, if you comment in the comment section, we'll try to bring it up on the big screen that we've got up here, and we'll address them at the end of the session. So for now, enjoy the journey and this conversation with Richard. Okay, so let's start off by going, well, where do most businesses fail? Is it to do with cash flow? Do they not have the right funding? Are there unforeseen expenses? Give us a bit of guidance there.
Well, look, the challenge with multi-level marketing is that people come into it generally having had a look at the MLM side of things. In other words, they've done that calculation that we all sit and do, 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, 64, 4,655,000, let's go and buy a Porsche.
Yes.
They do that calculation and they focused in on the fact that you can get this exponential growth, and that if you get the exponential growth and each person is doing, $100 worth of sales a month, suddenly you've got millions of dollars pouring into the business. Mm-hmm. And all of that is valid. The challenge is that backing up behind that is sorry, if you guys got a problem.
Can you just move your mic?
Oh, is it?
So just put it on the table.
Okay, let's do that.
Mine?
Thank you.
I'm fine.
I'm moving too much.
I'm good.
Yeah.
Check how good I am.
It's the maroon shirt again.
You see there.
Yeah, I made a mistake.
So, no idea where I was there. Yes. Oh, yes, we're talking about...
we were talking about why these businesses fail. Yeah.
So the issue is that what people don't realize is that you've got two separate businesses here. On the one side, you've got a traditional business with everything that brings into play. So you've got to have offices, you've got to have staff, you've got to have telephone systems and internet connections and places to train people. So you are running a traditional business in every single aspect of the word. And then on the other side, you're basically running an army of volunteers. It's like being the head of a church.
Yes.
Because these guys, you're not paying them a salary. They don't have to be there. So you've got an entire strategy to manage this army of volunteers. And you could have 50, 100,000 volunteers that you're trying to manage. So when people come into it, they just see this whole self-funding MLM side of it, but they don't see the business side of it. So they get involved in this. They don't have the cash to do the business side. And so the business tanks because they're not able to run a traditional business.
Yes.
So that is a huge thing. And we're talking about cash flow today and investment. That's what you need the money for. You need the money to run your business, buy the offices, etc., or rent the offices, etc. And then you need the money to launch the business and get it to a point where it's self-funding.
Yes.
Because these MLM businesses are self-funding. They're in a way that no other business on the planet is self-funding. But you've got to get to that point where you're at break even.
Yes.
And in order to go from zero to break even, you need to have some capital in the bank.
Okay. Brilliant. So we'll get into self-funding. I love that concept within the MLM space. Now, one of the things is It's very hard, and this is kind of your opinion. How much funding do we need to kickstart one of these multi-level marketing businesses?
Okay, well, let's just talk about the office space for a moment. So if you talk about these offices that we have here,
Yes.
we spend about probably
About 100,000.
yeah, a bit less than that, probably about $60,000
Yeah.
On setting up these offices. Now, what that included was that you've got deposits to put down.
Yes.
So we had to put deposits down. And if you don't want to sign surety, they want additional deposits. So you need to calculate that. We needed to buy furniture, make the place look good. In our case, we needed to buy video equipment to do the training and all of that side of things. And the same applies to MLM companies. You have to have training that goes out there, and you either do it in-house or you get it outsourced. But either way, you need cash for that. It's connecting to the internet. I mean, there's 1,001 things that you don't even think of. I mean, just the tenant installation here was huge. You know, where do you want the walls in the office? That kind of stuff. So if you're setting up a business and you're planning to do this professionally and you don't have your own office space already, you need to get that. And so some companies say, well, we'll just run out of our factory. Because we've got a lot of companies that actually, have a factory, they manufacture the product. The challenge that you have with that is that who wants to be coming into a factory? You know, what kind of image does that create? So you're not creating the right image there, and you've got to have your staff who are doing the support tickets and all of that kind of stuff. Then the other thing there's a big expense in is your IT solutions, and you have to have a good IT solution. Your entire business, everything runs on that IT solution.
Yeah.
And if it's not the right solution, you are in deep trouble, because down the road you have to change the system. It's like trying to change a tap without turning off the mains. It's really difficult. It's messy. So again, you have to have the cash to get a proper IT solution. And then you've got to be able to launch the company. And generally the launch requires, it's like, they say putting a rocket into space. They use 90% of the fuel getting that rocket 1 inch off the ground.
Yes. Yeah.
And the other 10% takes it all the way to the moon.
Love that analogy.
So it's the same thing with our business. 90% of the cash flow is used in just getting this business to what we call critical mass, which is at the point where you're breaking even and the business starts going vertical, starts becoming self-funding. 90% of your cash flow goes into that. And so many companies fail because they just don't have the money to sustain them to the point where they get to critical mass. And the less money they've got, the longer it takes to get to critical mass, the more they're hurting over time.
Yes.
So you asked the question, how much do you need? I reckon you probably need, realistically, you can launch a business on $200,000 successfully.
Yeah.
You can get it out the ground, get it to critical mass, get it self-funding with about $200,000.
And would you say, in your opinion, about 50% of this is to do with the launch? That getting it off the ground?
Yeah, I reckon that you're putting about $100,000 into the launch.
Really? Yeah.
As you know, we've got a launch strategy that we take our clients through, which gets them to critical mass and beyond.
Sure.
And that generally, the investment in that is about $100,000.
Okay. Great. Now, there's one, and we're going to talk about cash flow. One of the lines that I've read in your blogs, and I love this. It says, they say that turnover is vanity, profit is sanity, but cash flow is reality.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I love that line.
I don't know where I heard it from. It's not my line, but
Yes.
it is absolutely true.
It's so true. And how do we maintain a positive cash flow? We spoke about MLM businesses being self-funding. How does one go about maintaining a positive cash flow?
Well, the beauty of multi-level marketing, there's two major key points that I love about this industry. The first is it's a cash upfront business. No stock, nothing leaves your offices until the money's in the bank.
Yes.
So if somebody wants to buy this glass from you, the money's in the bank, then you deliver the glass. Okay, so that's the first thing. So you don't have a situation where in traditional retail, You might be paid on 30, 60, 90 days, 120 days in some cases. That means you've got to fund all of the stock for whatever duration you have, even if it's 30 days. If you're funding your stock for 30 days and that company turns your stock over 3 times, then you are funding 3 times whatever stock you started off with over a 30-day period.
Yes.
They then pay you. Generally, they pay you on invoice. You invoice on 30 days. They pay you. So you actually get your money in 60 days in reality. And that's if you're lucky, if you're not having to hound the company for payment. So you've got to have the capital to fund that. Now, if the business is plateaued, not really a problem because you have that capital and you keep turning it over.
Sure.
But if the business is growing, you are having to continually fund an increasing volume of stock that is going onto the shelves. That can be tough. The second thing is that if you're in the retail space, you don't have control of your margins because the retail buyers obviously are squeezing you for every single inch that they can get. That's how they make their money.
Yeah.
The cheaper they can sell it, the more they're going to sell, the more foot traffic they get through their retail environment, the better for them. So they squeeze you. Now, in the MLM space, this is the second thing that I love about it, is that you control the value chain. So you are the buyer, so you can squeeze the supplier as hard as you can for margin, and then you control what you sell the product for, because you control that entire value chain. Now, if you think about it, with the retail space, a person sees an advert and makes a buying decision based on an advert. And I mean, you've read a magazine. How do you read it? Do you go through the magazine and say, let me see what advertising I can read?
Definitely not. I pick out those headlines, those key points that pop out.
Yeah, so it's headline, turn the page.
Yes.
And your brain actually tunes out the noise.
Yeah.
And advertising we consider as noise.
Yes.
And
It's like
then
driving your car. We're leaving home to come to work.
Exactly.
I mean, I don't even know what happens in that period of 45 minutes from leaving home to get to work. It's invisible to me. It's not invisible. I mean, I see how I'm driving. Let's just make that very clear.
I've driven with you. It doesn't take you 45 minutes.
Okay.
It takes me 45 minutes to get to work.
But in
But
those
the way
10
you
minutes.
drive. But you're right. Your mind tunes out all of the noise in the world.
Yes.
Okay, and that's a huge thing. So in order to cut through the noise, the companies have to spend inordinate amounts of money on marketing. The beauty about the multi-level marketing space is that because I'm sitting with you,
Yes.
and I'm talking to you, we're engaged in the process. I engage you. Now, if I've been properly trained by the company to know what to say about the product, then what happens is that you fall in love with the product through what I say to you. You try it, you feel it, you touch it, you experience it, you've got a personal recommendation from me or from one of your friends. And the beauty is that you buy it from me at a price. If I've been properly trained, I build X amount of value,
Yes.
and I give you the product at a Y amount of investment. So if the value is greater than investment, it's an obvious choice. The person purchases it from you. So that's the second thing that I absolutely love about this. And the third thing is that, of course, your marketing budget, and I didn't say this up front, that we have 3 things, but now I've thought about it. Your marketing budget is funded by your network.
Yes.
And it's a variable cost. So if you sell, you make money. If you don't sell, you don't make money. So the company only pays for a successful outcome. It's not paying an advertising campaign that it hopes will result in a successful outcome. Correct. It actually physically pays after the fact for a successful outcome. So I sell $1,000 worth of product this month. I get $200 in commission paid to me after the fact. The money's in the bank. The product is delivered. I then get my marketing fee. And so those 3 things make this incredible in terms of positive cash flow, because now the company's not having to fund long-term stock holdings. It's not having to fund marketing budgets. And of course, it's a cash up-front business. So the money's in the bank before the product leaves the shelves. One other thing. Sorry, I see all you dying to push that next button. The fourth thing is there's no bad debt.
Yes, correct.
So you don't have a situation where, like we had recently, where all of your stock goes into a retailer and the retailer gets wiped out because of rioting
Yeah.
and looting.
Yes.
And so now suddenly all of your stock is gone, and he comes back to you and says, well, sorry, stock's gone, shop's closed, your problem. Here, the money's in the bank before the product leaves the shelf, so there is no bad debt. There's no book whatsoever. And that is another massive part of what makes this, that gives you the positive cash flow. Yeah.
Wow. Okay, so from 2 solid points to
We now
4
got 4.
things.
Jeez,
And
you're
I like
impressed.
it. I'm very impressed. I'm very impressed. And that's off the cuff stuff. I love that. Okay, now we're going to go into, a lot of people have asked me, what are the ways in which I go about securing funding? How do I do this? How do I get enough funding? But before we can get into that, let's answer the question, how do we go about evaluating these businesses? I mean, most of the time, these are startup businesses. There's no history of success. We don't have anything tangible. How do we go about evaluating?
Well, look, it depends on where you're trying to get the money from. Okay, so the first thing is if you are funding it yourself, then it's an easy question to ask is what is this worth to you? You know, and do you have the cash to put into it? So it's probably going to cost you $200,000 to get up and running.
Yes.
Do you believe in it enough to put your $200,000 in? Now, if you believe in the business enough, then obviously that's the way to go. Now, the second place that you would go to get funding could be potentially the bank. Now, the bank is going to want to know what's the business worth. Well, it's worth nothing because it hasn't started yet. So they're not too keen on investing in those kind of businesses. So in actual fact, it becomes self-funded because what they do is they'll go and look at what assets you have.
Yes.
And they don't care how much money you want to borrow as long as the assets cover what they're lending you. So you've got a house that's paid for and you've got a flat that you rent out that's paid for, and they're going to evaluate those assets and they're going to say, okay, based on those assets, we think we can get our money back from you. If everything goes pear-shaped, we'll lend you the $200,000. Now, I'm not a big fan of that, to be honest with you. So evaluating your business for a bank, especially a startup like this, there's no point to even doing it. You go to them, you say, I've got these assets, I want to borrow the money, they lend it to you.
Sure. Yeah.
If you were going to an investor, then the idea is that the investor's got to believe in your dream. So you've got to, it's not just a case of saying, well, what is the business worth? What you've got to do is you've got to create a business plan. You've got to put within that business plan what your projections are. You need to base those projections on real world companies that you've researched. So you've got to look at what other companies in your space have done in their first 6, 12, 18 months or whatever. So you've got to base it on that. You've got to have the most compelling product ever, because whoever's investing it in this business, first of all, has got to believe your numbers, got to believe them, has got to believe that the product is actually compelling enough that people will buy it. But the most important thing is they've got to believe in you.
Yeah.
They've got to look at you and say, listen, do we believe that you are going to do this? Okay? And if they don't believe that you're credible, if they don't believe you're the kind of person who can make it happen, you can forget about it.
Yeah.
So now the second thing is, okay, how much money do you want? So based on the trajectory of traditional businesses in our space, with similar products to what you're doing, over a similar kind of period, say 12, 18, 36 months, you can now say, okay, we're going to take this, and on a 36 months of turnover, or 3 multiple, if you're talking about annual turnover, you can say, okay, this is what we think the business is going to do. So let's say the average business in our space is doing $1 million a month. It's $12 million a year, it's $36 million over 36 months.
Yes.
So if you say that that's what the average is happening in the industry, and everything else is in place, you can say, okay, this business, we reckon we'll value this at $36 million. Okay? Especially, remember, it's a cash upfront business, you've got high margins. So you can do that relatively easily. Okay, now on 36 million, you can say to the guy, okay, if you want to buy half of the business, or let's say you want to buy a third of the business, it's going to cost you 12 million. So now you can give him, for $200,000, you can give him whatever percentage, 1 or 2% of the business based on that.
Yes.
But now the investors are clever. They're going to say to you, okay, the business is worth 36 million. You need 200 million, but we want 18% or 20% of the business for the 200,000. So they are taking the risk on you. So they want to get a premium amount of stock or shares in your business for the investment. Now that's where it comes to you as a negotiator.
Yes.
Because I know that my son, Ryan,
Yes.
sold a very small percentage of his company for a substantial amount of money, but he's just an excellent
Negotiator.
He's a great negotiator and is a highly credible person. So if you are going to the investors, it's how hungry are they for your business, for a chunk of your business, and
Yes.
how much do you get them to believe in what you're doing. So you can set your price at 36 million, and then it's up to what is their level of appetite for risk and how much do they believe in what you're doing. And understand, these investors, they're looking every day at businesses, and I can promise you, they're finding very little that gets their juices flowing.
Yeah.
Very little. There are very few businesses out there that they think, wow, I want to put my money behind this. Very few.
Yes.
And so they go from business to business, and it's ho-hum, and it's yawn, it's, oh my goodness, not another one of these.
Yes. Yes.
So when you come along, you need to absolutely wow them to get them steamed up about this so that you can justify, okay, this business is worth 36 million. And therefore, if you want that share, you put in that amount of money, I'll give you that share of the company.
Yeah.
And if you're any good, you've got 10 or 20 investors in the lines who you're speaking to who are all vying for that piece of action. And you get them to fight for the position to be your investor.
Yes.
You know?
It's like, I don't know if you ever watched the show, it's Dragon's Den or Shark Tank. And when someone goes to pitch their idea, they actually want to invest in the person first. Is this someone that is going to carry this business to where they think it's going to go? Then they invest in the idea. How important is it to have, when building this plan, the right suppliers that will carry you? And I'm not focusing on Netready, I'm just focusing on the strategic partners that will get you there. Something like our launch strategy, putting something like that in place with proven success. Is that important? I mean, having that all put into your business plan.
Well, it's critically important because if an investor looks at you, one of the things that they're going to judge you on is the homework you've done. So if you've got proper supply agreements in place to ensure that you can hit the margins,
Yes.
if you've got proper IT partners in place to ensure that the business is going to work and you can show them that this is a reputable company that you've got a contract with, and actually having systems up and running so they can see how this whole thing works.
Yes.
If you've got proper accounting partners who are doing the accounting for you and keeping track of the money, and specifically partners in play who can help you launch the business, who have done it before, companies who've produced this kind of stuff before and have done it before, and who can actually prove to you that they've done this with 5 other companies. Now suddenly your investors looking at this and saying, okay, everything's in place for this to succeed. In actual fact, in order for us to fail, we'd probably have to practice. Then you're going to get the money.
Yes.
And if that's not in place, the guy's going to think, well, geez, the guy doesn't have a system. The product suppliers are iffy. If we do volume, they're never going to be able to keep up. We've had a look at their factory. It's pathetic. You know, they'll never keep up with manufacturing if this thing does well, or the quality's rubbish or whatever. All of those things are going to come into play. And they're betting on you. So your credibility rests on the fact that you've done all of the hard yards, that you've done your homework. So when you go to them, and if you've seen the Dragon's Den, you see how many times these guys come in there and you think to yourself,
Yeah.
guys, you know, and they must sit behind their desk, and they do. They're
Yes.
kind of quite scathing when people come to them with either stupid ideas or haven't done their homework properly. You know, and they ask penetrating questions. They'll ask you about who your suppliers, how that suppliers work. Do you have the supply agreement? How are your IT systems done? You know, who's doing the accounting and all the finances behind it? You know, who are your success partners in this space that are going to help you grow this business? And if you don't have all of the answers, they laugh you off.
Yeah.
There's no chance of getting the money then.
Yeah.
Even if you've got the best product in the history of products, they're going to back you. They're going to bet on you. So, yeah, having those partners in play is part of why a guy would invest in you.
Yeah. Okay, and we're focusing on investors now. We'll get into the other ways in which we can raise funding. for those out there that are wanting to pitch to investors, I mean, you obviously have to do your homework. Is there a lot that goes into rehearsing this pitch? How do you rehearse it? How do you actually present yourself or practice to present yourself when going to an investor?
Look, I have to be honest with you, this is not my big skill set. Okay. I've never gone and got investment in my life.
Yes.
I've self-funded all of my own businesses and either that or bootstrapped them. So I'm not a great one to talk to in terms of finding investment. But
Yes.
one thing that I do know is that there are like dozens and dozens of books on, I looked them up briefly before we came on air. There's like hundreds of books in Amazon on finding investors and how to find them and where to find them, where the angel investors meet. All of that kind of stuff is available in the books. There's also companies who specialize in finding investors for you. Now, again, you need to be extremely good because they want a small upfront fee, and then they take a piece of whatever investment they get. They'll take a 10 or 15% of whatever investment they get from you. So in terms of finding the investors, they are out there. There are companies who specialize in connecting you with the investors. Obviously, you need to do your homework. And when you speak to these companies, you say, listen, I'd like you to give me 2 or 3 people who you've done this for so that I can get a reference from, you know, on you.
Yes.
Because you don't want to just put your money into a bottomless pit. The other thing is that if you go with somebody who's finding you an investor, you need to make sure you present them with everything that you've got and get them to pick holes in it before you put money in. Because what you don't want to do is go to them, pay them the money, then they review your product or your offering and say to you, listen, there's no ways we're going to find you someone.
Yes.
You know, and they'll take your money and they'll go and pitch it to people that they think might be interested. But if it's a weak offering, you'd be better off knowing about that up front before you actually put your money into the kitty.
Yeah.
And then, of course, when you pitch to those guys, the investors, you better be absolutely prepared for every single question that they could possibly ask you. And so you need to speak to people specifically. I mean, business consultants are a good one to go to if you don't have the experience yourself. Sit with a business consultant who helps you put your business plan together and get them to interrogate you every which way but Sunday. Put a great PowerPoint presentation together. Because you need 2 pitches when you're going to see them. The first pitch is what we call the elevator pitch, which is like a 5-minute pitch which hits all the high points. Okay? And you need to go through that quickly because what you want to do is you want now the guys to engage with you. If you can't convince them in the 5-minute that it's worth listening to your half-hour pitch, you can forget about it. So what a lot of guys go in is they go in and they do this. They've got this 45-minute pitch that they want to put to the investors, and they start off and they talk about their cat and their dog and their family history and where they've come from, and guy doesn't care. The first thing he wants to know is, what is the idea? Can I invest in it? Now, a friend of mine went through this, getting this kind of thing, and what he did is he actually sent a document with the high points in it. So he sent what he called a pitch deck with the high points in it. Like the 10 or 20 high points. It took the guy 5 minutes to go through it, where he highlighted all of the issues, the cash flow requirements, supplies, etc. Said to the guy, I'd like to make an appointment with you if this grabs your attention. The guys once he got the person's attention with that high-level pitch deck, he was then able to go in and pitch them. And of course, he has an MBA, so he understood how to pitch. And he pitched them and got his financing, but it was a high-level pitch.
At that point, they know something about the business. They've sparked an interest, and you're kind of going there to just give a broader picture of what this business can look like for them. Yeah,
and some time ago, a friend of mine downloaded the original pitch that was put together by what's this hotel stay as you go?
Trivago?
No. Where you book somebody's house.
Airbnb?
Airbnb. Yes. So it was the Airbnb pitch deck.
Yes.
And he showed me the sort of pre-pitch deck and then the pitch deck on how they did this.
Wow.
And so that is available on the internet. You can actually search for it and download it.
Yes. Wasn't there a story around he went to one of the banks to get a loan and they turned him down? I mean, those banks must be...
Well, the banks don't care because, as I said to you, what is
Sure.
the bank?
There
The
you
bank
go.
is not in the business of risk.
Yes.
They don't care. They do not risk their money. What the bank wants to do is they want to lend you money against an asset you have. So if you go to them with a clever business concept, that's not where they get excited.
Yeah.
They want to know there's assets backing it up, and that's what they lend against. So they're not in the business of risk. Investors, an investor will invest in 10 or 20 different companies, knowing that maybe one of them will succeed. But he tries to pick companies that have got the potential to be massively successful, so that if one of them succeeds, all of the other investment is immaterial. And so that's how they work. They're in the business of risk, and they look for high yield. Obviously, this is high risk environment, but they look for high yield businesses where the jockey is somebody that they can believe in. You know. Anyway, so
we are. Let's stay with investors because it's one of the ways in which we try to secure this funding. Are there types of investors you should be looking at for your specific business? And then let's talk about, is there an exit strategy for investors, or do they just stay the duration? So when I talk about the type, is it someone with experience within your industry, or is it someone that just provides the funding and then is very much hands-off?
yeah, generally the investors don't want to be involved in the day-to-day running of the business. So as I say, I don't have a lot of experience in this space, but the people I've spoken to have told me that they'll put the money down, but they insist on having somebody, an accounting firm in their space, who is actually looking after the business funds. They obviously expect all of the fiduciary duties for the company to be fulfilled by that person, and so that they're on top of the cash flow, that you can't just spend excess money on anything. You have to get, the funds passed through. So from that side of things, the investor is looking to hold some control on that. Now, generally, it's not a type of investor, but it's people who are in specific spaces. So you'll have people who have got they specifically are focused on tech, and so they only invest in technology companies. And you've got people who are invested in like the leisure and travel industry, and that's what they know.
Sure.
They like it, they stick to it. And so the more important question is, where do you find somebody who's specifically in your vertical that you're doing? If you're in voice over IP, then you're looking for a technology partner.
Yes.
If you're in health and wellness, then you're looking for people who are in the sort of health and wellness space, and so on and so forth.
Yes.
So it's important to find people in that space. And as I say, I'm not really very good at that, but if you go onto the internet, you'll find companies who specialize in doing that. As a matter of fact, you and I should actually go and find somebody who does this in this space and interview him to find this information out and
Cool. Would
and
love to do that.
publish it. Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
Note to self.
Note to self. I'll make a note right here. Then let's go into that of the founding member program. How do we raise capital through the founding member program?
Now you see, so that's kind of much more my speed.
Yes.
I'm a great lover in bootstrapping businesses. I hate the concept of taking a whole lot of my personal cash and sinking it into a business in the hope that it's going to succeed, because most businesses fail. So I like to bootstrap businesses. So the founding member program is one of the ways that we've, over the years, have used to bootstrap businesses. So let's say we need to raise we need to raise $200,000.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's real simple. We get 1,000 people to put in $200.
Yes.
Or we get 500 people to put in $400, and so on and so forth. The bottom line is that if I can get 200 people to put in $1,000, I've raised $200,000. Okay, so that we call the founding member program. So we say to people, listen, why don't you become a founding member with this company? This is our incredible, cool, highly compelling product. This is our incredibly cool, highly compelling compensation plan. This is the cool, highly compelling me. And just remember, these guys are each investors now in your story. So they're the same thing as what investors want. It's just there's a lot more of them, and they're actually buying into the business at a very small investment level. And you say to them, in return for your $200, I'm going to give you the following. And now you make them a compelling offer that is worth so much more than the $200 they're going to give you. But because your cost of money is a variable cost, you can actually afford it because it doesn't matter. You know, let's say you say to them, okay, we're going to give you the top rank in the business. Let's say Crown Ambassador is the top rank. We're going to make you a Crown Ambassador for a 12-month period, 18 months, 24 months, whatever, okay? Then we're going to give you a badge that says you're a founding member. We're going to put you on our website and acknowledge you for being a founding member and have your profile up there. Let's say we're running a binary compensation plan. We're going to put you in the power leg, right at the top of the power leg. So that what happens is, as we build this business, everything is going to be underneath you. Then we're going to take 5% of the company's turnover and we can put it into a pool bonus, and we're going to split that between the founding members based on their performance. So you can actually share in 5% of the company's turnover for the first 24 months or 18 months or whatever you decide on.
So there's a finite time there. We don't want to keep giving away 5% to those founding members.
Well, exactly. So the last thing you want to do is have a pool bonus for 5% of the company's turnover that lasts indefinitely, because that would be the most expensive $200 you ever borrowed in your life. Because if the business is successful, those guys are going to be earning a fortune. So let's say you're doing $12 million a year. It's $600,000 that you'll be splitting between your founding members every year.
Wow.
Can you imagine for $200 they're getting a chunk of the business's turnover ad nauseum? That would be insane. So yes, 12 months, 18 months, somewhere around there is where I'd put the cap on. The cap,
okay. And would you then, so I mean, we on pool bonus now, would you then focus on having a performance-based remuneration on that?
Yes, because his $200 is not the only thing we want out of him. As your founding member, you want two things. You want him to be focused on the $200, but you want him to be heavily focused on growing the initial base of the network so that you can hit that critical mass and go vertical. So let's say you and I both put $200, oh, mustn't slap my microphone here. Let's say you and I both put $200 into the kitty.
Yes.
But you went out and you built 900 people, and I only went out and built 100 people. Well, obviously, you should get 90% of the kitty, and I should only get 10%, because you did 90% of the work, I only did 10% of the work. So you need to attach or tie the pool bonus to the performance of the individual. So whatever they're bringing to the table, the $200 is only part of it. It's $200 plus their effort. But my experience is a man's heart is where his gold is. So if he's put his $200 into the business and he's now a part of the inner circle, he's a part of the founding member program, he tends to work much harder at the business. And through our launch strategy that we've got with Netready, we leverage those people to actually get the business to go vertical, to hit that exponential phase of the business, to get through that critical mass period and to take the business vertical. So yeah, so for me, what's critical, I'm not sure what that's saying.
Oh, I think that's just 20 minutes left.
Oh, okay,
Thanks,
cool.
Caleb. And it's all about managing the expectation, showing the founding members who are investing what they need to be doing in order to fully access in the returns.
Exactly.
And if they're not going to do it, well, then they're not going to receive it. But that's why training again, we keep harboring on this training element, and that's why it's so important. They need to know what they need to be doing in order to be achieving, the various payouts.
No, absolutely. And you're giving them a massive leg up. So you're saying to them, listen, for $200 investment, we are making you a part of the company's inner circle. We're giving you special ranks. We're giving you special badges. When you come to the meetings, you're going to sit in the lounge suites at the front of this thing.
Nice, yes.
The waiters are going to be serving you coffee while the presentations are going on. You'll automatically qualify for our international incentives, or you'll get special incentive points that help you, give you a leg up there.
Wow.
There's a lot of things that we can offer that person for his $200. So now you've got, or $1,000, should I say.
Yes.
Now you've got 200 people giving you $1,000, and you got the money that you need. You got your $200,000 to launch your business. Now, without that, you can't launch. So that founding member program is critically important. But again, going back to what I said earlier, each of those people is a mini investor. And so you've got to do the same pitch to them. You've got to pitch them the product, to pitch them how you're going to do things, your dealer agreements, everything's got to be in place so that they buy into you as a person. And they say, okay, this guy's going to make it. As a result, I'm going to make a bunch of money out of this thing. Here's my $200.
Yes.
Yeah.
And when we go out and pitch, a big part of that is stacking the value. You're
Yes.
going to get all these incentives. Everything here,
the value
it is
stack,
the value
absolutely.
is X, but you're only going to be paying Y. It's an obvious choice.
Exactly. Exactly. And again, you know, I keep harping on about this launch strategy, but the issue is that that is where you can leverage your investors. So you can go to your investors and saying, hey, we're launching this business. You're going to be part of that exponential rapid growth. It's only going to cost you X amount to get in. Now, a number of our clients, what they've done, which I think is quite clever, is they've got different packages. So they've got the $3,000 platinum package,
yes.
they got the $2,000 gold package, and they got the $1,000 silver package. And depending on which package you buy, you get different ranks, you can get different benefits and different shares of the company's profit. So, for example, and then they'll only take on, they've only got 200 slots because they're only looking for $200,000. So they'll only take 50 people or 20 people in the platinum, 50 people in the gold, and the balance will be in silver. So they also create some tension to get people to dive into the bigger positions faster.
Yeah.
So by limiting the amount of people they take in each of those, they actually get more of their cash and they get fewer people. And then, of course, the people in the platinum section are going to share 2.5% of the, or 2% of the 5%, you know, and so on and so forth. So they'll get a bigger chunk of the pie, etc. So there's a lot of ways to leverage those initial investors and get them on board to give you the cash that you need. And so we've done that. We did that with one of our companies, one of my personal companies, Acorn Kids. We actually got people to invest at the time. It's in rands. We got 50,000 rand from each of the founding members, and that gave us the cash flow to launch the business and really get it off the ground.
Yeah. In your opinion, would you say this is the most powerful way to generate that capital? Because if I had to think about it, you'd have enough capital to get you through to the launch and that 90% and enjoying that trip to space. And you're only giving away, let's say, 5% of capital.
Yeah, look, I don't think so. I think
sorry.
if I had the cash to do it without doing a founding member launch, I wouldn't do a founding member launch.
Okay.
I wouldn't do, not a founding member launch, I wouldn't get prepaid founding members.
Yes, okay.
So if I had the money, I would rather keep the 5% because understand, if we're doing 12 million, that's $600,000. If we did it over 2 years, it's $1.2 million we're paying for a $200,000 dollar investment.
Yeah.
That is just like extremely high interest.
Yeah.
What is that, like 1,000% or something? It's crazy, or not quite 1,000%, but 1,020. Yeah, it's not quite 1,000%. It's like 600%. I mean, who would pay 600% for to borrow money? So it's not the first place I would go to. But if I didn't have the cash, then obviously paying 600% for that money on risk, because if it fails, you don't have to pay anything. You don't owe them. You haven't borrowed it.
Sure.
They're investing.
Yes.
So paying 600% is worthwhile if you didn't have the money in the first place. So yes, then I give the 5% away.
Yeah.
Give it over a limited period, so in the long run, you're not tied into this every year.
Yes.
But the beauty of that is then you've got the money to launch your business properly.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. So we've spoken about investors. We've spoken about that of using the founding members to generate the capital. We've also touched on personal funding. If you're in a position to fund it, I mean, in your opinion now, yes, this is the route you go.
Yeah, so a lot of the clients we're speaking to have already got successful businesses, and they already have a product range that is going into the retail space or wherever, and they're working in that space. They've now got a new product range, and they're looking at MLM as a route to market. Now, they've got the cash to do it. or they've already got an investor who's put the money in. In the case of Nano, they've already got an investor who's put up the cash. In that case, hell, use your own money.
Yes.
You know, and definitely don't go out and get, you know, give away a percentage of the company's turnover.
Okay, fantastic. Let's talk about partnerships. What is your view on partnerships within the space?
Look, a good partnership can be brilliant. Have we got some messages here?
Okay, yeah, so we'll put a pin into partnerships. Renee has asked, I think the founding member idea is excellent, but one must really understand it very well. Can someone get some more information on how to on founding members?
Absolutely, Renee. I've got an ebook that I wrote on the founding member program. It's how to raise $100,000 fast. So just you can just log a ticket with our team, and they will actually provide you with that ebook, and you can take a read of that. It gives you a much more in-depth look at the founding member program.
Cool. Thanks, Renee. Let's get back to partnerships. So your view?
Well, a good partnership can work really well. My dad had a partner in his business, and they had two totally different skill sets. My dad was much more production oriented, and his partner was much more sales oriented. And they built the biggest exporter of carbon products in the Southern Hemisphere together. So partnerships can work. They can also be incredibly stressful. So I've had a couple of partners over the years, and for me it has been a less than pleasant experience. It's like being married to somebody and literally not being able to get divorced, because how do you get out of something like this? So if you go into partnerships, there's absolutely some key fundamentals you need to put in place. Your partnership agreement needs to be tight, and you need to have an exit strategy that both of you agree on upfront. Because let's say you and I in partnership, and things are not working personally on a personal level, and you want to get out. Now, you want to get out, so you could offer to sell me your shares, but you might be ridiculous about it. Or you might think that I need to get out. You might want to work me out of the business, and you might want to offer me crazy, stupid, silly, little money for my shares. So as part of a partnership agreement, you have to have some form of exit strategy that works. Now, the one that I'm really in favor with is called a Texas shootout. I don't know if you've heard of it. Okay. So the way it works, is that if I want to exit the business, I need to offer to buy your shares from you, or I need to offer to sell my shares to you. Okay. But whatever the offer is, the person I'm making the offer to has got the option to take that offer up themselves. So let's say I say to you, okay, I want to sell you the shares in the company, and I want to buy your shares in the company, and I'm only prepared to pay you $1 for your shares. Well, the rule is that I can either say, fantastic, I'll sell you my shares for $1, or no, that's fantastic, I'm going to buy your shares for $1. Okay, I understand. So now here comes the trick. It's because I want to sell you my shares, or I want to buy your shares. That's an easier way to put it. I want to buy your shares. If I say $1, I know for a fact that you're going to say, please, here's the dollar, I'll take your shares. Because that's the rule. I have to sell you the shares for what I'm wanting to buy the shares from you for. Have to. That's part of the agreement. So if I make the offer, then I've got to be prepared to sell at that price. So now I've got to look at the business and say, okay, if I sold you the business for $100,000 and you decided you're going to buy it from me, am I happy with the $100,000 out the deal? And if I'm not, then am I prepared to, what would I be happy with? If you offered me $200,000, I'd definitely take the $200,000. Now I've got to ask myself, am I prepared to pay $200,000 for the shares? No, not really. Okay, so what am I prepared to pay? Well, I think I'm prepared to pay $180,000 for the shares. If I got $180,000 for my shares, would I be happy? So now it puts a huge pressure on me to actually value the business correctly. Because if I want to get out and I make you the offer, I say, listen, I'll buy your shares for $150,000. You have the option to say no thank you very much, I'm taking the company, here's $150,000. So I've got to be super careful that I don't try and shaft you in the process.
Yes.
And so that makes the whole exit strategy extremely fair, because if I make you a low offer, then you say, fantastic, I'm taking the company.
Yes.
If I make you a high offer, I screw myself.
Yes.
So, so part of a partnership, I think they can work. I think they can be absolutely excellent. So I would say that make sure that you're not swimming in each other's lane.
Yes.
So everybody stick to their own lane, so that you're not, you make the big decisions together, but the daily stuff, somebody needs to be in manufacturing, then don't let the guy in sales be sticking their nose into the manufacturing department. You know, if there's a problem, highlight the problem, we need to fix it, but don't be going and doing that. And also the person is in this lane shouldn't be getting involved in the sales lane. You know, you need to have different strengths.
Sure.
Otherwise, you're going to get on each other's nerves. And then, of course, the big thing is the buyout strategy.
Yeah.
The other thing that really irritates people in partnerships is when one person is pulling too much of the load.
They put in the weights.
Yeah. So you got two people in the business. The one guy's slacking, the other guy's working his guts out. That immediately creates a strain. So you need to have some processes involved that manage that. You know, because remember, you can have a partner, and if he's not working, you can fire the partner. You know, you need to have a mechanism. If that person is not actually pulling their weight, you need to be able to fire them and redirect their salary to somebody who will do that job properly. So you need to have some sort of tiebreaker where you can get into a boardroom, vote to fire whichever partner is not pulling their weight. Have some sort of arbitration, a tiebreaker rule in place so that you can get rid of the partner on a day-to-day basis and put somebody in place who will actually pull their weight in that space, rather pay a salary. Obviously, that partner still has their shares in the business. And if you declare... Yeah, they don't get a salary. And so part of that partnership is make sure that they're getting salary, that you've got a way to fire them, that there's some sort of tiebreaker in terms of voting, etc. Those are all processes. I would get a good business consultant involved in any partnership deal to make sure that you cover all of the bases in putting your partnership together in the very first place.
That exit strategy, is that set up front? That's decided?
That's
We're
part of
doing
the
Texas
partnership agreement. Yeah.
Okay, so it's not something that you agree on when we're getting to the point of...
No, because then who would agree on it?
Yeah, well, for sure.
That you write into your contract that if you offer to buy my shares, whatever price you offer, I can buy your shares at the same price.
That's amazing. Okay, we've got 6 minutes left.
Okay, any other questions there?
Okay, nothing yet. The last thing we're trying to touch on is that of crowdfunding. So just very high level, how does crowdfunding work?
Well, look, crowdfunding, you can't fund an MLM business through crowdfunding. So they don't allow it. But what you can do is you can crowdfund your R&D and your marketing budget, etc. So you need $200,000 for launching your business. Let's say you need another $100,000 for your R&D. So you can put a budget together of $300,000. You can focus all of your attention on the R&D of your product, what the product is, how the product works, what you need the money for, and then what people will get for investing in it. And of course, you've got the multiple different packages. You can give them a share of the turnover, share of the profit for a period of time. Obviously, they get the first batch of products that come off the line. They invested $100 or $200. They get $500 worth of product. So you can make it extremely attractive for a crowdfunder to put their money into it. But if you go and look at the crowdfunding sites, there's a lot of noise there. And to cut through that noise, to get people's attention, you've got to have a very unique product. You've got to have identified a really strong need and a strong niche, and you've got to be focused on that niche. And you've got to find people who are interested in that space. Then you've got to have a pitch deck that's second to none. And I'm talking about videos, and then you've got to have an incredible offer, because the guys don't just put their money in unless there's a credible offer. So all of that stuff is critically important when it comes to crowdfunding. And again, I would get a specialist company involved who does this kind of thing for a living. a company that's got a track record of success. So you need to have a look at the last 20 projects they've done, and you need to see what their success rate is. And even if you're paying a bit more money for a company, if they've got a higher success ratio, those are the ones you need to go for. And again, you need to pitch the product to them and find out what they think. You know, and I would pitch it to 10 different companies. If there's a credible company out there, they're going to tell you, listen, this is useless, or yes, this will work.
Yes.
You know, and they won't just take you on the ride to get your cash. So I would definitely look at multiple companies there.
Yeah. Brilliant. Thanks.
Okay, I don't think we got through everything. I think there's another 3 hours of stuff we could talk about here.
It's the same as training. I mean, I've said we speak about training often, but there's so much to get through. And one of the things I want to do is just highlight the different ways in future events like this, is highlight the different areas where training becomes so important and how to do training. So that's to come.
Yes.
But for now, thank you so much for this financing your MLM business. Always insightful.
Thank you.
Loved it. Okay, guys, thank you so much for the time. There we are. Thank you for joining us. Really appreciate it. Hope you enjoyed the content that came from Richard and I. We'd love for you to subscribe to all of our channels. Go into YouTube. Also hit the bell so that you get notified each time we upload new content. There's a Spotify channel. Follow us on Facebook as well as LinkedIn. Everything is being communicated on these platforms, and we'd love to see you there. But from us, from myself and Richard and Netready, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks.
And we'll see you next week. Cheers.